Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Formally making a person known to another or to the public. A show or display. The act of presenting something to sight or view. The presentation of new data. A visual representation of something. Obstetrics. Position of the fetus in the uterus relative to the birth canal. Cesarean sections are sometimes the result of abnormal presentations. The activity of formally presenting something, as a prize or reward. She gave the trophy but he made the presentation. The act of making something publicly available, presenting news or other information by broadcasting or printing it. He prepared his presentation carefully in advance. The act of presenting a proposal. Formally making a person known to another or to the public. A brief introductory passage to a piece of popular music. Formally making a person known to another or to the public. The act of beginning something new. The act of starting something for the first time, introducing something new. The act of putting one thing into another. A basic or elementary instructional text. A new proposal. They resisted the introduction of impractical alternatives. The first section of a communication. Proof by a process of argument or a series of proposition proving an asserted conclusion. A visual presentation showing how something works. The lecture was accompanied by dramatic demonstrations. A show or display. The act of presenting something to sight or view. He gave the customer a demonstration. A public display of group feelings, usually of a political nature. There were violent demonstrations against the war. A show of military force or preparedness. He confused the enemy with feints and demonstrations. A show or display. The act of presenting something to sight or view. An accusation of crime made by a grand jury on its own initiative. A document that must be accepted and paid by another person. To show, make visible or apparent. National leaders will have to display the highest skills of statesmanship. Something shown to the public. An electronic device that represents information in visual form. Something intended to communicate a particular impression. Made a display of strength. A visual representation of something. Attract attention by displaying some body part or posing, of animals. Behavior that makes your feelings public. A display of emotion. Exhibiting openly in public view. A display of courage. A speech act that conveys information. To furnish incriminating evidence to an officer of the law, usually in return for favors. A speech act that conveys information. Provide evidence for. The blood test showed that he was the father. Pretending that something is the case in order to make a good impression. That ceremony is just for show. Take someone to their seats, as in theaters or auditoriums. The usher showed us to our seats. Indicate a certain reading of gauges and instruments. The thermometer showed 13 degrees below zero. Indicate a place, direction, person, or thing, either spatially or figuratively. I showed the customer the glove section. Show in, or as in, a picture. Be or become visible or noticeable. His good upbringing really shows. Something intended to communicate a particular impression. A show of impatience. Give an exhibition of to an interested audience. She shows her dogs frequently. Give expression to. She showed her disappointment. Establish the validity of something, as by an example, explanation or experiment. The mathematician showed the validity of the conjecture. A social event involving a public performance or entertainment. They wanted to see some of the shows on Broadway. Finish third or better in a horse or dog race. He bet $2 on number 6 to show. Give evidence of, as of records. The diary shows his distress that evening. Make visible or noticeable. She showed her talent for cooking. The act of publicly exhibiting or entertaining. A remarkable show of skill. A presentation to the mind in the form of an idea or image. The state of serving as an official and authorized delegate or agent. A performance of a play. A body of legislators that serve in behalf of some constituency. A congressional vacancy occurred in the representation from California. A creation that is a visual or tangible rendering of someone or something. A factual statement made by one party in order to induce another party to enter into a contract. The sales contract contains several representations by the vendor. An activity that stands as an equivalent of something or results in an equivalent. A statement of facts and reasons made in appealing or protesting. Certain representations were made concerning police brutality. The act of representing, standing in for someone or some group and speaking with authority in their behalf. The right of being represented by delegates who have a voice in some legislative body. The arrangement of the body and its limbs. He assumed an attitude of surrender. A complex mental state involving beliefs and feelings and values and dispositions to act in certain ways. He had the attitude that work was fun. A theatrical pose created for effect. The actor struck just the right attitude. Position of aircraft or spacecraft relative to a frame of reference, the horizon or direction of motion. A condition or position in which you find yourself. The unpleasant situation, or position, of having to choose between two evils. A job in an organization. The spatial property of a place where or way in which something is situated. The position of the hands on the clock. The particular portion of space occupied by something. A rationalized mental attitude. An opinion that is held in opposition to another in an argument or dispute. A way of regarding situations or topics, etc. The arrangement of the body and its limbs. The relative position or standing of things or especially persons in a society. Atheists do not enjoy a favorable position in American life. A point occupied by troops for tactical reasons. Put into a certain place or abstract location. The act of putting something in a certain place. An item on a list or in a sequence. Moved from third to fifth position. The post or function properly or customarily occupied or served by another. because to be in an appropriate place, state, or relation. In team sports, the role assigned to an individual player. What position does he play? The act of positing, an assumption taken as a postulate or axiom. The appropriate or customary location. The cars were in position. Characteristic way of bearing one's body. Stood with good posture. Capability in terms of personnel and materiel that affect the capacity to fight a war. Politicians have neglected our military posture. A rationalized mental attitude. The arrangement of the body and its limbs. Assume a posture as for artistic purposes. Behave affectedly or unnaturally in order to impress others. She postured and made a total fool of herself. A formal event performed on a special occasion. A ceremony commemorating Pearl Harbor. Any activity that is performed in an especially solemn, elaborate, or formal way. The ceremony of smelling the cork and tasting the wine. The proper or conventional behavior on some solemn occasion. An inaugural ceremony. A proposal offered for acceptance or rejection. The act of making a proposal. An offer for a private bargain, especially a request for sexual favors. A task to be dealt with. Securing adequate funding is a time-consuming proposition. Logic. A statement that affirms or denies something and is either true or false. Suggest sex to. She was propositioned by a stranger at the party. An offer of marriage. The act of making a proposal. They listened to her proposal. Something proposed, such as a plan or assumption. The act of beginning something new. They looked forward to the debut of their new product line. Appear for the first time in public. The new ballet that debuts next month at Covent Garden is already sold out. Make one's debut. This young soprano debuts next month at the Metropolitan Opera. Present for the first time to the public. The band debuts a new song or two each month. The presentation of a debutante in society. An act of renewed introduction. A demonstration held in opposition to another demonstration. Supporters of the president organized a counter-demonstration in his support. A collection of things, goods or works of art etc., for public display. The act of exhibiting. A remarkable exhibition of musicianship. The state of being vulnerable or exposed. His exposure to ridicule. A representation of a person or scene in the form of a print or transparent slide or in digital format. Abandoning without shelter or protection, as by leaving an infant out in the open. Aspect resulting from the direction a building or window faces. The studio had a northern exposure. Presentation to view in an open or public manner. The exposure of his anger was shocking. The act of exposing film to light. The act of subjecting someone to an influencing experience. She denounced the exposure of children to pornography. The disclosure of something secret. They feared exposure of their campaign plans. The intensity of light falling on a photographic film or plate. He used the wrong exposure. Vulnerability to the elements, to the action of heat or cold or wind or rain. Exposure to the weather. Presentation of an example of what the lecturer is discoursing about. A dramatic or musical entertainment. They listened to 10 different performances. Process or manner of functioning or operating. They compared the cooking performance of each oven. The act of performing, of doing something successfully, using knowledge as distinguished from merely possessing it. They criticized his performance as mayor. Any recognized accomplishment. They admired his performance under stress. The act of presenting a play or a piece of music or other entertainment. We congratulated him on his performance at the rehearsal. Display consisting of a printed card with letters and numbers in lines of decreasing size, used to test visual acuity. An air-filled sac near the spinal column in many fishes that helps maintain buoyancy. Be in motion due to some air or water current. A hand tool with a flat face used for smoothing and finishing the surface of plaster or cement or stucco. Be afloat either on or below a liquid surface and not sink to the bottom. A drink with ice cream floating in it. Allow currencies to fluctuate. The government floated the ruble for a few months. An elaborate display mounted on a platform carried by a truck, or pulled by a truck, in a procession or parade. Circulate or discuss tentatively. Test the waters with. The Republicans are floating the idea of a tax reform. Convert from a fixed point notation to a floating point notation. Float data. Make the surface of level or smooth. Float the plaster. Move lightly, as if suspended. The dancer floated across the stage. Put into the water. Float a ship. Set afloat. He floated the logs down the river. Something that floats on the surface of water. The number of shares outstanding and available for trading by the public. The time interval between the deposit of a check in a bank and its payment. A blunder that makes you look ridiculous. Used in the phrase, make a spectacle of yourself. An elaborate and remarkable display on a lavish scale. Something or someone seen, especially a notable or unusual sight. The tragic spectacle of cripples trying to escape. The act of beginning something new. Putting on display for the first time. He attended the unveiling of the statue. An artifact that has been created by someone or some process. They export most of their agricultural production. The quantity of something, as a commodity, that is created, usually within a given period of time. Production was up in the second quarter. A display that is exaggerated or unduly complicated. She tends to make a big production out of nothing. A presentation for the stage or screen or radio or television. Have you seen the new production of Hamlet? Economics, manufacturing or mining or growing something, usually in large quantities, for sale. He introduced more efficient methods of production. Law, the act of exhibiting in a court of law. The appellate court demanded the production of all documents. The act or process of producing something. Shakespeare's production of poetry was enormous. The creation of value or wealth by producing goods and services. The first presentation of a bill in a legislature. The second presentation of a bill in a legislature. To approve its general principles, Britain. Or to discuss a committee's report and take a vote, U.S. The branch of medicine dealing with childbirth and care of the mother.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.